Today's webinar is a part of our series of events focusing on how to help your business to stay sustainable throughout the pandemic. Today, we are delighted on having with us Ude Takar, Managing Director of Radoker, who will be delivering this webinar. Next slide, please. So my name is Francesca, and I'm a Community Manager at the Royal Academy of Engineering Enterprise Hub. Next slide, please. Just before starting, I would like to share with you just a few housekeeping notes. So first of all, this webinar is going to be recorded, and we will share with you the video after the event along with the slide deck. If you could please switch your mobile phone and laptop notifications to Do Not Disturb. Next slide, please. And also, obviously, we look forward to take as well your questions after the event. If you can please submit your queries, any questions you have through the Q&A feature on the toolbar. Next slide, please. So just before starting, I would like to share with you a little bit more about the Royal Academy of Engineering and the Enterprise Hub. So the Royal Academy of Engineering is the National Academy for Engineering in the UK, and it is harnessing the power of engineering to build a sustainable society and an inclusive economy that works for everyone. In collaboration with our fellows and partners, we are growing talent and developing skills for the future, driving innovation and building global partnerships, and influencing policy and engaging the public. Together, we are working to tackle the greatest challenges of our age. And this is also where the Enterprise Hub sits. So we can summarize the mission of the Enterprise Hub through its main three goals. So we aim at inspiring and encouraging more people to pursue a career as an entrepreneur. We do this through our Enterprise Fellowship program, where we support startups and spin-outs with seed funding, training, and mentoring. We want to accelerate innovation, and we pursue this aim through our SME Leaders program, where we support established businesses to access the next level of growth. We do this providing them with training and access to network. Finally, we want to make the UK a great place for tech entrepreneurs and help to build a more resilient ecosystem through policy advice, use of our network, and events like this. And now, with no further ado, I would like to jump to the next slide and introduce to you Ude Takar, who will tell us more about how to set up a sustainable and successful business delivery from the get-go. Over to you, Ude.
Thank you, Francesca. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to do a presentation on some of the thinking that needs to go through your mind in actually setting up a business, and even if you have set up one, maybe reconsidering some of the things that you have done and what you need to put into place. What I'm going to share with you is based on the experience I've had of setting up and running businesses over many years, and for the last 18 years working as a consultant, working with a lot of early startups, small businesses, all the way up to helping businesses grow to quite substantial entities. Some of the tools are things that have resulted as from my own experience, and some of them are commonly used tools that academics and other business practitioners have put together. What I'm going to do is go through some of the initial thinking and planning that you need to have in place before you launch a business, some of the thinking as you launch a business and explore what you want to do. And then I'm going to end up with some pointers on the right style of management to help your business become sustainable and successful, and also some of the considerations to take with you as you go forward. Next slide, please. So the first thing is, my experience has been that many businesses, many people start businesses in a bit of a rush. They have some knowledge, they work for someone else, or they spot an opportunity, and jump into it. And they get to a point, they hit a ceiling where they're really not sure where to go next and get stuck. And quite often what we have to do is actually get them to take a step back and start thinking again what it is they were doing and why they thought there was an opportunity. And what I've got here is something that I've come up as a sort of a flow chart really to work with people thinking of starting up businesses or having an existing business and saying, let's just look at this. You know, what is the opportunity out there? What is it you think you found that will allow your business to, first of all, start up, find customers or clients, and then actually grow? So the first thing is about identifying what we describe as a market dysfunction. That's, there's a gap in the market, or there's a product or service out there that's not really hitting the mark as far as customers and consumers go. So it's about, have you spotted a market dysfunction? Is there really a need out there for a new or a different service? So you, first of all, is doing that research, confirm that there isn't anyone else doing this, or there is someone doing it, but they're not very good at it. There's all sorts of issues about the way they deliver the service. And the question I always ask people is, okay, how have you confirmed this? You know, if you've just gone out and asked some of your friends, and in one case, one person said he'd asked his mother and his mother completely agreed with everything he said. Well, that isn't proper research. There is some research. What have you gone out to do it? Because remember, you'll be committing a huge amount of time and energy and your own money into this. And if you get it wrong, you'll have wasted that opportunity. So getting that research done and doing it in a systematic way is really important. Then ask yourself this question, why is there this gap? Why is there this problem? Why is no one fulfilling this product or this service? Or if there is something there, what's happening? Why isn't it successful? And what are the symptoms? What is the thing, because there isn't this gap being fulfilled or being fixed at all, how does it affect your potential customers? What are the symptoms they feel? You know, is it the hunger, they've got something that they feel they need, but they're not getting it. They want something better, they want something faster, they want something quicker. So it's about then going through and saying, well, what is it really? What's the root cause of this? What is it that we've identified? And I'm going to give you an old story. Henry Ford, when he started making a motor car, he went and asked his customers, his potential customers, what is it that you want? And what they said was, riding horses is too slow. We want faster horses. So the symptom was that they needed to get to places faster. And their solution to this was faster horses, because they couldn't see beyond horses that there might be another form of transportation. So what Henry Ford was clever about was, he said, well, it doesn't have to be a horse, it could be anything else. What they want is faster transportation. If it can fix that problem, then we've got a market gap we can fulfill. So what you need to start thinking about is that having spotted this gap and we think we know what it is the customer wants fixed, start asking yourself this question, what am I going to be up against? It may well be the problem's unsolvable. If the problem's unsolvable, maybe it's something you shouldn't be undertaking. You can look at it and you turn around and say, no, this isn't the right problem to solve, I'll think of something else. Or the solution that you come up with is actually of no interest to anyone. It might be of interest to you because it's your solution, but the people who are going to buy it from you go, actually, I don't like it, I don't want it. It could be that the gap is currently being fulfilled by someone else, but the person who's filling that gap is complacent. They've been doing it for years, they've gone lazy, they're slow, they're expensive. Again, a very old example, just to prove the point. Going back about 25, 30 years ago, if you wanted to fly across the Atlantic, there were only three choices. It was Pan Am, TWA, and BA. They were very expensive, really awful service. Why? Because they were a monopoly on that transatlantic route and they couldn't care less. They didn't really care about customers. And Branson comes along and says, I can do it cheaper, I can make the experience fantastic, and I can actually challenge the complacent incumbent. And he became a billionaire on the back of that. And one of the things you need to think about is that there is a complacent incumbent. How are they going to react? what are they going to do? Because they're not going to be happy about you taking the market from them. So there could be things that you need to think about, that if my competitors do X, I'm prepared for it, or if they do Y, I'm prepared for it. I've thought it through. I'm going to get my product, my service, my brand in the customer's mind, so that whoever challenges me actually can't come in and displace me. The other thing is that it may well be that solutions have come up in the past, but it wasn't an appropriate solution for the time. It could have been because it was dependent on technology. Technology has changed, and this is now the right time to actually deliver the solution. That this, even though people have spotted the gap in the market before, they haven't actually been able to fulfill it because they didn't have the right technology or the right resources. So these could all be great things that come together for you, and you can come up with the solution that was tried before but didn't work for certain reasons, or you yourself have come up with a new solution. The next question I always ask people is, why you? Why should it be you who delivers it? Do you actually know enough about how to deliver that product or service, how to make that product or develop that service, how to market it, and how you get a successful and sustainable business out of it? Now, this is quite an important question, because you may be very good at spotting gaps in the market, but can you actually fulfill all the other business functions? And if not, will you be able to work with other people around you who can bring in those skills? And that's quite an important consideration, that even if you have the skills now, as the business grows, you won't be able to do everything yourself. You have to start thinking right from the start, what are all the resources and capacities and capabilities I'll need to bring in? What is the team I'll need to deliver it? So I can justify why people should buy from us, because we can fulfill the service as a whole. At this point, it's still worth going back and asking the customer that you had identified and saying to them, this is the solution that we've come up with. We've got new product, new service, or this is the way we're going to deliver it. Is it still of interest to them? Because they may have told you something a few months ago, but the time it comes for you to deliver it, they may have changed their minds, or there may be a competitive product in the market, or people have gone about saying, well, we found our own way of solving that problem, we're not interested in yours. So before you commit your own resources in actually launching the product or service, double check the customer still wants that problem solved. Next slide, please. The next thing, quite often people make an error on when they're starting up, is that they haven't actually identified who the purchaser is. You may have identified who the user of your service or product is, but is that the person who can take the decision to buy from you and pay from you? So I could set up a private school and make it really, really fantastic for all the kids who are going to come and use it, but the kids don't actually pay for the service, it's their parents. So I have to make sure that I fulfill a service. I've identified that the user group is the children, but the purchasers are the parents. So I've also got to gear my marketing towards the purchaser and make sure they understand the service and the benefits I'm giving them, as well as the user group, which is the children. So there is an exercise to be done in understanding who is the purchaser, who does take that decision, who does pay for your service or product. Now, it could be it's direct. I know exactly whoever uses my service also buys from me. It could be semi-direct, but I have to go through an intermediary. I have to go through a wholesaler. I have to go through an umbrella organization. I have to go through a specified stock provider in order to get through to the purchaser or user. This is quite often true for getting into big retail, either department stores or supermarkets. You have to go through an intermediary, or certainly things like fashion and so on. You quite often only can get placements going through an intermediary. So you not only have to market to the ultimate purchaser, the one who's going to spend money with you, you also have to convince the intermediary to take your product and stock them in these supermarkets or department stores or any other form of retail. And again, this can also apply to a lot of engineering products. I'm working with a building parts manufacturer. The only way you can get through to the people who actually buy his little widgets is 2 or 3 major wholesalers in the UK and the US. So he has to market to them as much as he does to the people who are ultimately going to pay for the product. You may also find that actually there's a tangential decision maker. basically a user group may say to you, yes, we love what you do, and they can influence the purchase, but at the end of the day, they haven't got the power to buy from you or pay from you. So, for instance, a lot of organizations, lots of companies sell to the government, and it may well be that you talk to the people who are going to use your service or your product, and they think it's wonderful, but they tell you that you have to go to a purchasing department or you have to go to some other entity that actually takes the decision as to whether someone is going to buy this product or service, and they will take that decision and then inform the user and purchaser. The user and purchaser, basically the payments or the finance department is the purchaser, but the decision is taken elsewhere. So there is also sometimes quite a triangulation to be undertaken, finding out who the decision maker is so that you can influence their decision as well as the person who's going to use it. And both of them will then tell the person to release, whoever holds the purse strings, to release the monies. Now, this is quite important because when people start businesses, what they quite often do is just concentrate all their energy and all the resources to the user group, and then find however much the user group likes what they do, they cannot make that purchase because they haven't got the power to purchase or they don't have access to the purse strings. So you have to think about who my customer is. Next slide, please. Now, when you're thinking of a solution, there are various tools you can use to determine what attributes that solution has. What is it that's going to attract the customer to use you? And there is a commonly used tool called value curves. And let me just talk you through this as an example of someone wanting to start a hotel. Basically, they did some research and they said that, well, let's look at the sort of attributes a hotel has. So does it have eating facilities? What's the architecture like? What's the building like? What do the lounges look like? What's the room size? Is there a receptionist there? What condition and quality is the furniture? What amenities are available in the rooms? Bed quality, hygiene, quietness of the room, and the price. Now, if they look at the research that was done, they said that on an average 2-star hotel, things are sort of medium. Bed quality, hygiene, not so great. If you go to a 3-star hotel, things are slightly better. That people who want to use 3-star hotels think that things such as bed quality, hygiene are very important. Room quietness is not so important. Price is something that's quite important to them. So if I was going to start a hotel, I'd look at this and I'd say, well, I'm going to position myself in a way that I actually hit those spots that the customer is looking for, the things that are important to them. So if I can actually provide those things and build that into my strategy in startup, then I'm going to find that people are more likely to use my product or service. Let's see an example of that. Next slide, please. So if you can see in this example, Hotel F1. So I'm going to start a hotel, having looked at what the competition does. I know that eating quality, architecture, lounge, room size, and everything are not that important to the customers I'm after. What is most important to them is the bed quality, hygiene, and room quietness. I'm going to have that as my selling proposition to my potential customers because I've identified those as being very important to them. And that's going to make me more competitive than those people who actually got 2-star and 3-star hotels where they're not fulfilling that need that customers have identified. So this gives you an idea that even if you've identified a product or service to take forward to a market, there may be certain attributes that you should build in that makes you a better fit to what the customer wants, makes you more competitive, and ultimately more successful. Next slide, please. The other thing that has become increasingly important, and this is a term that you will come across quite regularly, is something called the value proposition. For people, much older people in the audience, you may recall that historically there was a term called the unique selling proposition, and that was considered to be quite aggressive because it sounds as if what can you do to sell or force your product or service onto the customer. So the terminology has changed and we now talk about the value proposition. What is the value you create for your customer? This is really important. Most people actually go around talking about the attributes of their business. They talk about the features of their business rather than the benefit to the customer buying their service. So what will happen is most customers will just look at what you're talking about and say, I don't understand how that benefits me. Why should I buy your product or service compared to someone else's? Because I just cannot see what benefit that will have to me. I'd like to just give you an example. A few years ago, I was approached by a legal firm based in Cambridgeshire, and they just appointed a new senior partner, and the senior partner had been tasked with improving the profitability of the legal practice and to grow the legal practice. And he came to me and he said, well, we're struggling. We've been around for a while, and we have lots and lots of customers, clients, historic clients. We're finding it quite a struggle to get new clients. And can you help us? So one of the first questions I asked him was, well, what benefit do you deliver to your customers? What is it about you that people would feel we need to come to you, we need to use your legal practice? And he thought about it and he said, we've been going for 100 years. And I said, well, is that relevant to me? What does that tell me? That doesn't tell me you can get me a mortgage or you can help me with my divorce or help me buy my house. It doesn't tell me anything. It just tells me that maybe your office is full of very old people. And he thought about it and then he said, we've got the best best legal library in the whole of Cambridgeshire. And I said, that's still meaningless. That doesn't mean anything to me. What is the benefit of that? How does that translate into me coming to you and paying you a lot of money? How does that translate through to me? And we had to work quite hard for them to think through what the benefits they gave the clients. And it was things like, we're trusted advisors, we get the results you want. We do it at, we're not going to call ourselves cheap, but that we're moderately priced. These are things people can relate to and say, I can understand that. If I come to you, you look after me, you're a trusted person, you'll make sure I get the result I want, and it's not going to cost me the earth. And again, it's this, what is that benefit you create for your customer? Because if you can identify that, you can market those benefits, and again, you're one step ahead of your competition. So a Swiss academic called Ostwalder created something called the Business Model Canvas a few years ago, and as a follow-up for that, he created the Value Proposition Canvas. And basically what he says is that you have to look at the customer and you have to look at it from the customer's point of view all the time. Put yourself in the customer's shoes. And this is really from a commercial customer's point of view, and you can use it equally for a retail or selling to the public. Identify what the customer's jobs are. What is it they have to do? What is causing them a pain? And what would they reckon is something that's going to be a gain for them? What will make them happy? What will make the job easier? And what you've got to look at is you've got your products or services, and you've got to make sure that what you have is going to take away that pain from your customer and actually make them realize that there is a gain, that there is something positive to be got out of them buying that service or product from you. And you use the canvas actually to think through how you getting that information and how you go around developing your products and services and marketing them, so that that message that we can take away that pain and help you get that gain is very relevant to the customer you're selling to. Next slide, please. So I just want to talk through some steps in thinking through about your value proposition. Ask if you look at the customer or the client, the first question is, what do they need to get done? What is it they need to do? Why should they buy that service or product from you? And that I would describe as being the rational driver. We need to do something. We need a product or service that will fix it. Now, what you also have to think about is whatever your solution is, that potential customer is going to think about substitutes or competitors. So you've got to have an argument to show why your product or service is going to be better than that of the substitute or competitor. The second thing that person's going to think about is, what is it that gives me pain? And what gain am I looking for? So this service or product I'm using at the moment is difficult to use, it's too expensive, nobody understands it, or it just makes my life too complicated. I really don't like using this product at all. I want to use something else, something easier to use. The gain I'm looking for is something that will take, will mean I have to use less time on this, or it just makes it simpler for me to use, or it's simple for me to explain for other people to use. So there is an emotional drive. There's something about what can make my life or job easier. If it does that, then I want to buy this product or service. And against that, you have to think about if they're using, even though they keep complaining about the current service they have, there's always this fear of change. I don't really like what I'm using now, but actually, how do I know what you're offering is going to be any better? It could be worse, and I'm afraid of making that change. Or it could be, well, I think it's great, but my boss might not be too happy about it. So there's a perception of risk that the boss would say, why on earth did you do that? So these are some of the thoughts and thinking that you have to overcome. So my advice to people is, okay, start with the features of your business or your product or your service and say, what are the features? You know, it's easy to use, things of that sort. How does that then translate through to those rational benefits to the purchaser? So what is it they need to get done? How does it help them get that done? And the next thing is to think about the customer journey, the emotional pull. How can you convince the other person who's making that buying decision that what you're doing is going to take away the pain and make their job or their life much, much easier? If I can then connect the two, so the person is saying, oh, I can see this does the job really well. And you know what? It actually does it faster, cheaper, easier for me. It's a no-brainer. I'm going to buy that product or service. So again, this is about thinking through the benefits to the person buying the product or service or using it from you, rather than you thinking about what's relevant to you, what's important to you. You need to think about what's important to the people taking that decision. Next slide, please. I've come up with a very short checklist of things that I suggest people use when they're formulating their value proposition, and also sometimes if you get the opportunity to talking to a potential customer or user. Basically, what I reckon is that out of this list, if you can get one or two of these points across to the person you're talking to, you're raising their interest in buying your product or service. Once there is an interest in buying your product or service, you've got a really good opportunity of actually getting in there and selling your product or service and getting a long-term customer. So let's go through this rationale. If I've got a service that actually makes money for you, there's always someone who says, I'm not interested in making money, but my experience of 40 years in business is that most people will turn around and say, I'm very interested. If it makes money for me, please tell me, explain to me what you do. The only exceptions to this would be things like the government or the NHS, because they're not in business to make money, but they're very interested in saving money. You know, government departments are always talking about, we've got to save money, we've got to cut costs. So does the NHS, so do any of the public services. So if you're selling into the public services, I wouldn't even start with saying this will make you money, because that's not of interest to them, but this will save you money is certainly of considerable interest to them. And if I was talking to a commercial client, if I could get both points across, this will make you money and it can save you money, all the better. The next thing is that product or service going to stop a problem? I know you've got this pain, and what I'm offering you is going to take that pain away from you. Because what I've got is cheaper, I can get it to you faster, or it's easier to use, or it's something that's going to be sustainable, you'll be able to use it long term, you don't have to keep replacing it every few minutes. Anything of that sort, it's taking away a problem that person has. The other point is about preventing a problem. It's taking away a potential pain. Now, there may be a change in legislation, new health and safety rules coming in, there's new employment rules coming in, we've got to comply with new market conditions, we've got more paperwork to do because we're leaving Brexit. That means when you're selling to Europe, you're going to have to do a multitude of different things as of the 1st of January. And the person who runs the business is going, oh my God, how am I going to cope? And you go, I've got a service that will take that pain away from you. So I've got something I can do that isn't a pain right now, but it's going to become a future pain. I can help that pain hitting you at all. I can prevent that problem happening. So these are all the rational, the commercial arguments about why they should use your product. And then, of course, you've got to tie it in with the emotional, which is also explain to them how by using your service or product, it's going to make their life or the job much easier. And if you can, if your job's easier, your life's better, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel good about it. So you're almost saying, not only is this going to make you money and take away pain, you're going to feel much better about using it. Your boss is going to be very happy you made that decision. You're in for a promotion. Your boss will feel good. You'll feel good. That's why you need to buy this product. Very simplified schematic here about how to get a message across. I promise you, we've been using this with loads and loads of clients. We've worked with hundreds and hundreds of clients in the last few years who have used this methodology and had considerable success with it. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to go through the schematic, which is a summary of a book written by a man called John Mullins, which is about business road test, called the Business Road Test. Basically, what Mullins, who's at the London Business School, proposed is that most people start businesses without thinking through all the contingencies, all the things that surround a business and the delivery of the business. And he wrote a whole book about what are the things that you need to think about. I'm just going to summarize them here because it is something it's well worth, again, taking into account and using this schematic when you're launching a business or trying to improve your existing business. And he's broken it down into 3 domains. First of all is or 3 levels rather. He's got the macro level, the team domain, and the micro level. At the macro level, what he's asking is how attractive is the market? Now, basically, the more attractive the market is, the more competitors are going to come in to work in that market. So are you going into a market where there's going to be a huge amount of competition? So it may be that you're better off going into a market that doesn't have that much competition, there are fewer people in it. It gives you the ability to sell more products or actually price your products higher because there isn't much in the way of competition. So think about the market attractiveness. If you're going into something where there's loads and loads of people doing the same thing or similar things, it's going to be much harder for you to succeed. Similarly, within any particular market, there may be certain industry domains. How attractive is that industry in terms of attracting people operating in that industry sector? And you want to try, if possible, avoid an attractive industry and an attractive market, operating in a place where it's new, other people aren't there, where it's not very attractive, and that's why there's a lot of scope for you to grow and succeed. The next thing is to think about in terms of the team. That's all about you and the team, and it's all about how you're going to deliver what you do. Do you actually understand? Do you have a mission? Do you have a purpose? What is our vision about where we want to take our business? Because actually having that aspiration, having that drive is going to keep pushing you and your team when things get tough. And for most businesses, there'll always be periods when there are things that are going tough. But if you've got the aspiration, you've got a vision, you know what it is you want to achieve, you're more likely to get there. And also, you've got to understand your own propensity for risk. That is, how much risk are you prepared to take? And if you're not prepared to take a risk, maybe business isn't for you. But if you are prepared to take a risk, you have to build in the amount of risk you're prepared to take in every decision you make. There are certain things you're not going to do because they're too risky, but you're prepared to live with this level of risk. And the more experience you get, the better your team is. Obviously, the greater the risk you can actually take on. And the other thing is also to think through the ability to execute your corporate strategy. I've come up with, this is how we're going to go and sell our products and services, this is how we're going to grow, which is all very well, but have you got the ability, have you got the resources, have you got the credentials of actually being able to do that? And if you haven't, the strategy part of your thinking is, how do I bring in those skills? How do I bring in the resources? Do I find consultants to do it? Do I bring in temporary staff? Do I train my people? Do I employ people? What do I need to do in order to be able to execute my strategy? Because I may have identified the market, may have the right service. My customers have told me they love it. They understand the benefits. I've got a mission. My vision is to be the biggest player in this market. Actually, I don't even know how to make it or sell it, and you fail. So think through the ability to execute. The other thing here, Mullen's identified as being very, very important, and I would certainly say that you need to think about this as well, is that connectedness up and down and across the value chain. So if you've got suppliers, are you selling into wholesalers, distributors? Are you going through various platforms? Do you have to operate through some umbrella body, a trade body? Who are all the different suppliers you have? It may be product suppliers, but it could be suppliers of your property, it could be suppliers of all sorts of other things, as well as part-time workers or consultants that you use. The better connected you are, the more sustainable your business is, because you can always find, you can use this network and connectedness to find the right suppliers, or the people you've got are putting up the prices or not giving you what you need. It's very easy for you to switch because you're connected. You can ask people, and that connection has to be both up the chain, so to the people you're selling into, as well as down the chain, people who are supplying you, and across the chain. And a lot of this is to do with about going out and networking, making your presence known, getting other people to know about you. So you're there, you're a player, and you can connect that and use that to leverage your business. Then looking at the micro level, we talked a bit about this in terms of, have you identified who your customer is? And can you actually help them understand the benefits of what you do and why they should buy your product? And also to ask yourself a question, how attractive is it operating at that level? Am I happy selling to that particular group of people? And again, I've come across a number of businesses where people, the owners of the business or the chief executives, have said, well, these are our customers, but actually I really dislike them. I don't like selling to them. And it comes across. You know, people go, we don't like buying from them. They're always rude to us, or we don't get the service because there isn't that attractive. They do not find that particular customer group or client group attractive to work with, and that's always a problem. And the last thing to think about is the sustainable advantage. What will make you different from your competitors? What can you keep doing to block your competitors coming into the market? Create something that will actually stop other people displacing you. So it could be things like your brand, or it could be the quality of your service. It's hard for anyone to replicate that. Or it could be that you need certain qualifications to be able to operate in that market, and other people can't do it. And obviously, you'll find a lot of people do this. They get into a market, and then they pull up the drawbridge, because they turn around and say, oh, you've got to operate it for 3 years in this market, or you've got to have this list of qualifications before you can operate in the market. It's a way of preventing other people pushing them out. But quite often it can be down to customer loyalty. We've built up a huge amount of customer loyalty. We've built up a brand. An example I came across fairly recently was, I may get the name wrong, but I think it's called, Good Earth may not be the name of it. It's a food product company that's been operating for the best part of 30 years, and it's all organic and sustainably sourced goods. And they've been in the supermarkets for years, selling things like peanut butter and so on. And these are no added sugar. The whole of the peanut goes in there. It's sustainable sources, and it's all organic. And they've got a very good, very loyal customer base. 10 years ago, Nestle decided to actually try and muscle in on that market, because they could see the small companies making a lot of money. And they brought in a very similar product at a slightly cheaper price. And given that they're a very, very big supplier into the supermarkets, they were able to force the supermarket to take the product. But what happened was that the customers the target customers, the people who buy these products, basically said, no, we're loyal to that brand. We've got no connection with this company. And when they were alerted to the fact that it was this huge multinational corporation called Nestle, which has a pretty bad reputation, people just said, there's no way we're going to buy those products. And in the end, Nestle pulled out of the market altogether. They decided it wasn't worth pursuing. So this company had created a sustainable advantage to stop other people displacing them. Next slide, please. So I said here is something I'm calling a cascade of choices. And this is taking up bits and pieces from the earlier slides. what is the purpose of our business and what is guiding our aspirations? What is it? What is our aspirations? So what are we going to do? And what are our aspirations? And why are we going to make this a successful business? And how are we going to do that? So think about, where are we going to operate? Which geographies? Is it going to be online? Is it going to be physical? Is it going to be based in the UK? Is it global? Decide where it is you're going to be selling your products and services into. Think about the product categories. Where do you fit in? How will it be easy for people to understand what your product is? Because people are used to having things put into sort of pigeonholes, that belongs here, not here. Think about the customer segments. Which customers are you going for? Again, understanding who your customers are very clearly, very important. Think about the channels. How are we going to get our services or products to them? How are we going to alert people to our products or services? How will they know about us? And have you thought about all the different stages of production? Have you thought how we're going to produce these things and get them to market? The next thing is, start thinking through how we will win. So you've got to convince yourself you've got every right to win. It's a competitive market out there. We have the right to go out to do something really good and to win. So we've got to come up with a really good value proposition and describe our competitive and make sure that is built into our competitive advantage. It's about, again, blocking those people from coming in and displacing you. And you've got to keep working on this all the time. You can't just say you've started off with something, got this competitive advantage now, and we'll stop. You have to keep reinforcing those activities that give you that competitive edge. So you must keep building on the capabilities and figure out what you need to do next and how you're going to use these capabilities and resources to keep you ahead of the game. Going back to the example I used earlier about Virgin and BA. Virgin came along and it was a very refreshing brand. It came up, made flying a pleasure. It was cheaper, service was great, good food, good drinks, free drinks and all the rest of it. And it took a long time, but BA did react to it. BA then turned around and started copycatting Virgin and caught up with Virgin in terms of service and amenities and prices. And it became harder and harder for Virgin to compete against that, other than its brand and the fact that BA's always had a slightly tarnished brand. But the point was that the other two main competitors at the time, Pan Am and TWA, went out of business. So Virgin has always had to work on how can we keep making our brand better recognized, how can we keep reinforcing what we do better, because we know BA and other airlines will keep snapping at our feet and try and catch up and overtake us. We have to keep working on this to keep improving what we do. The next thing to do is think about the support systems. What are all the systems, structures that we need to have in place to make sure that we deliver what we need to deliver and that they can cope with the growth that we have? We also need to have some system of internal and external measurement. Are the things that are things happening the way we want them to happen? How do we measure that we're on the right course? How do we know that customers are still happy? How do we know we're buying things at the most valuable prices? How do we know we're selling things at the most competitive prices? We need to have a system of measures in place. Not only that, once we've captured those measures, we actually understand them and do something in terms of taking action about them. So what are the support choices that you're going to make to allow this to happen? What are the management systems you need to have in place to do all this? Now, I'm saying, obviously, some of these things need to grow as you grow, but if you start thinking about this right from the start, you've thought about the systems, you've thought about how you're going to do it, where you're going to do, and what you're going to do, you've got a greater chance of success that you can cope with any sort of knock, and you're going to be resilient to change, and you're going to be able to be quite sustainable as you go forward because you've thought about it, you've planned for it, and you will implement changes as you grow. Next slide, please. And finally, one of the things I would say, this is from a great strategy thinker called Michael Porter. If you are going to start selling a product or service, you need to decide one of three choices. What are you going to compete on? Are you going to go out and say, we're going to sell our product or service cheaper than everyone else, so we're going to compete on price, so cost? Or is it that we're different? We're going to compete on differentiation, where we're quite different? Or are you going to go out and say, we're going to find a very niche market, and we're going to be a big fish in a small pond, rather than trying to be a multicolored fish in a big pond by being different? or just being one of thousands of tiny fish running around in this big pond, but we're faster and cheaper than anyone else. Think about what it is you're going to do. Which strategic focus are you going to pursue? Next slide, please. The other thing I would strongly advise is that if you have some purpose in as to why your business exists, it's going to help you in terms of customer loyalty, getting people to buy into your brand, getting employees, getting even your suppliers and people, if you're selling into other businesses, why they should stay connected and remain connected with you going forward. If your business is all about just, I'm in this to make lots and lots of money, people are not very happy about supporting you. Why should I support you just making lots of money? If it is that, you know, our business is all about satisfying customer demand, but doing it in an ethical way, in a green way, we want to do things that actually our employees enjoy working here. We want to make things better. We don't want to harm the planet. We have some purpose behind our business. We've created this product and service because this is something that impacts on so many people, and we want to make things better in the world. What you will find is both it attracts customers, it attracts employees, attracts all sorts of supporters. It gives you something to focus on to go forward. And what I would like you to think about, and this is something you may want to look up on the TED Talk. There is a talk given by Simon Sinek, which is called The Power of Why. And he said the most successful businesses are those that have a vision. They are able to explain why they exist. They have an emotional and motivational and engaging pull on their customer base. That when you ask them what the business is about, they start off by telling you why they exist. And one of the examples he uses is Apple. Why is it that when people, Apple launches a new product, people queue up for days beforehand to buy the product? Any other computer company that launches a product, nobody bothers lining up. And he asks that question. If you go and ask Apple what they do, they will tell you, we're here to make the use of technology easy for people to use. We want to make it something everyone can actually engage with. Whereas if you ask other businesses what they do, they say, oh, we make computers. So they're telling you what they do rather than why they exist. They're not using the purpose. They're talking about something incredibly boring. It's about the business model. So we found actually quite in parallel to this, we have been using this sort of magic circle formula with charities for many, many years. In fact, long before we ever even heard of Simon Sinek. And we use the same thing with charities. If you can explain why you exist, why you're here to change the world, and how you want to do it, and what you do, and that's where you need help, that's where you need people to come in and give you resources, volunteering or donations. Start with the why, you're more likely to succeed. So can you create a purpose? Can you create an emotional pull and emotional engagement, which will motivate supporters, suppliers, customers, and your employees, and you? In fact, I'm motivated because I really want to succeed in this. I think if you can build this sort of purpose into your business, you've got a fantastic chance of success and sustainability. Next slide, please. Now, there's one thing that the successful business also relies on the flexibility of the mind and approach of the people or the person who founds the business. And my experience has been that over many years, actually a lot of really, really good businesses flounder, primarily because the people who actually start the business or run the business have got a massive ego, and they will not accept that actually they're not up to doing everything, or that they know everything, that they are the best people who know everything. But the stronger you are in turning around and saying, I don't know everything, and I'm prepared to ride on the shoulders of giants, I'm going to get people in who can do things better than me, the more likely it is you will succeed. And for most businesses, I would suggest that there are 4 cornerstones of management. And when you start a business, the founder has to do all 4 of these tasks. As you grow, you want to bring in other people to do those tasks, and you want to bring in people who can do those tasks better than you. Now, this involves a little bit of letting go, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, but let me just go through the key skills as I see it. One is the entrepreneur or the visionary. This is the person who goes out and makes a deal, has got this vision, this purpose. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to set up. There's sort of the leadership skills, the visionary spotting opportunities, convincing people. And if you think about it, it's a sort of Richard Branson type character in there. But in order to do that, you've got to have the skills to be actually run the operations and technology and the delivery aspect of all this. We've got to be able to make the product or service. We've got to be able to deliver it. We've got to make sure it works. All the rest of it, all the functionality of that needs to be in place. You also got to have sales and marketing, because you may have the best product and the greatest visionary, but if you can't actually get the message across to your potential customers and clients, you're not got a business. And then the most boring bit, the bit that most people find really frustrating, the finance and admin. If you haven't got good financial controls, you haven't got good management information systems, good administration in place for all these things to function, it's not going to happen. Now, I've deliberately put things at a diagonal. So the entrepreneur visionary has to be balanced by the naysayers, the finance department is saying no to everything. Finance people don't like taking risks. Every time you come up with a new idea, they go, oh, wouldn't do that, it's risky. Whereas the entrepreneur is saying, let's go for this. I don't understand what this word risk is. Let's just do it. And then you've got the operations and technology people. These are the people who work in-house. They're developing new things and so on. They're quite different from the sales and marketing people who are outside and showing off and trying to sell things. So these are quite different skills. So you start off having to do all of them. And as the business grows, you have to start deciding where, as the founder or the managing director, I'm going to sit. My experience is very few of the people who start the business are ace at finance and admin. It's very unlikely you find them there. They will usually be the entrepreneur visionary with a sales and marketing background, or they have some very deep knowledge about operations and technology. But as you start growing, you've really got to take a decision. I'm going to sit in one of these boxes, because you can't do them all. And again, just using Branson as an example, he's dyslexic, he's not very good on detail. Very early on, he took the choice that he likes being the show-off, being the entrepreneur and visionary, and really marketing the Virgin brand. And he employs very, very good people to do the operations, technology, and all the finance and admin. Similar thing happened with Bill Gates. Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft. When Microsoft got to the size of 17 people, he admitted he hated managing people. It wasn't something he was good at. So he brought in Steve Ballmer, who had an MBA, and said, look, you're the person who can look after the operations and the admin. You've been trained to do it. You do that bit, because I'm no good at it. I'm going to be the entrepreneur visionary. And he gave himself the title of chief architect, and Ballmer was the chief executive. So again, here are two clear examples of some very, very successful business people who said very early on, I'm going to work where I can be most effective and bring best value to my business, not let my ego get in the way. Next slide, please. One of the things we get a lot of work from businesses from is the fact that business owners are very, very reluctant to let go of anything. They let their egos get in their way. And I want to talk through this journey of the entrepreneur and how you need to get yourself in the best place to create a successful business. When most businesses start off, the founder operates as an artisan. They have the skills and expertise to make and sell products or services. Effectively, they start off as self-employed. You may have worked for another company, or you come up with a new idea and you start off where you can do everything yourself. You are effectively an artisan. You then start building up a team, and you start bringing in someone who's going to do a bit of marketing, someone selling, all these other functions. Trouble is, you don't want to let go. So every time there's a problem, rather than saying, I've employed someone to deal with that, you turn around and say, no, leave it to me. I know how to deal with this problem. I've done it all my life. You're like the hero. You're like Superman, ripping the shirt off and saying, hey, I'm superhero. Leave it to me. I'm going to go off and do it. And of course, your employees then turn around and go, great, I don't need to bother doing anything. The boss will sort it out. And when you talk to the boss, and this is where we come in, they go, I can't believe, I'm working 24/7. I'm almost on burnout. I'm constantly firefighting. My staff are bloody useless. They can't seem to do anything. I have to do it all. And effectively, it's their own fault, because they've created dependency on their employees for problem solving. They keep insisting on solving the problems themselves rather than training the people they're employed to solve the problems. And we have to train them to do that. We have to say, stop trying to be a superhero, get them, that you're employing them, you're paying them, get them to start solving the problem. They won't do it as well as you, they won't do it as fast as you. If you don't teach them, you're going to burn out. Hopefully, we then get them up to the next step of the ladder, and they still want to interfere with the business. What I call the meddlers. They bring in experts. You know, I brought in a marketing expert from who's worked in a multinational company. I brought in so-and-so on the IT side, and you brought in all these amazing experts. And then what you do is you turn around and say to them, I know you're the expert in marketing, but let me tell you how it's done, because I've done it in practice all my life. I'm from the University of Life, and I keep interfering, telling you what to do, even though it's obvious they know more than I do. And what the management perceive is there's a lack of trust. You're trying to micromanage them. You won't let them do what the right thing is. You come up with ideas that may have worked when you were a sole trader or a small business. It doesn't apply when you're much larger, and they'll leave. And what you need to do is get yourself away from this owner dependency and get yourself to being a strategist. You want to be in a position where you are facilitating the managers to solve problems. You're not doing it yourself. You're helping them solve the problems. You're helping create trust in those people and saying, I'll support you. I'm not going to shout at you if things go wrong. And by creating that trust, you're contributing more to the business by actually doing less. And then you can start thinking about what I can do to grow the business. I can act as a strategist. I'm working on the business rather than working in the business. And I promise you, this is a difficult journey to make. But if you can make it, where you can park your ego, bring in people you know are better than you, but hey, they work for you. You're still the boss. As I said, right on the shoulder of giants, you're going to have a successful business. Next slide, please. The next few slides are really about what you need to start thinking about once you've got your business up and running. One of the things is constantly looking at your customers' needs and requirements, and also to think about what your competitors are doing. And this is a tool developed by some academics. And what they found is that if you research your customers and ask them what are their needs, what is it they want from their suppliers, and you map what you do against the customer, what they've told us consistently is that you, as a supplier to that customer, only deliver about 20% of what they consider to be valuable, benefit to them. 80% of stuff you do because you like doing it, not because the customer wants. And then if you map and you have to do this competitor by competitor, what is it the competitor can offer your customer? They too only offer 20%. Now, from the customer's viewpoint, where what you offer and what the competitor offers are the same, it's a commodity. I can choose one or the other. There'll be some bits where only you supply, which is where you add value. And there are some bits where only the competitor does something where they add value. So part of your constant strategy as you go forward is looking at this and saying, how can I map myself so I increase the amount of value I give my customers, and I can neutralize the value my competitors are giving. So basically, I want to move my circle on top of what my customer does and push the competitor out. And you need to be doing this on a regular basis. I'm looking at what's going on all the time. So I remain competitive, I keep meeting what the customer wants, and I don't let the competitors overtake me. Next slide, please. And one of the things that Peter Drucker, who was one of the greatest management thinkers, came up with this term called systematic abandonment, which is regularly review your internal and external priorities and the products and services you sell. Do you still need to be doing what you're doing? What happens is as businesses grow, they accumulate bad practices, they have hobby horses that they shouldn't be running anymore. Sometimes basically you get lazy, and what you end up with a very, very lazy and flabby organization that's not meeting customer needs. And on a regular basis, you need to review things and turn around and say, if you had to start all over again, would we do what we're doing now, or should we get rid of it? And some really good people at doing things like this are someone like Google, who regularly spends a lot of money developing new services. They don't work, they drop them. Just to give you an example, many years ago, I was a part of a team that went into a well-known household financial services company. And what had happened was that they found that they had tiers and tiers and tiers of administrators, and they couldn't understand why. And what 20 years before, they launched a new product, which was a pension product. It had required a team of 5 people to manage it. 20 years on, they had 7 tiers of management reviewing the same pension product. And it had just grown out of someone saying, well, maybe someone else should look at it, and then someone else should look at that. And they had 250 people looking at something which only required 5 people to do. And when they were told about it, they went, oh my God, that's so obvious, we missed it. And they got rid of these tiers. And you need to do this on a systematic basis. Regularly look at your products and services and internal admin. What can we drop? That's making us inefficient. Next slide, please. Just again, I want to give you a really great example of someone who consistently has a history of doing this. Whitbread started off in 1742 as a brewer. One of the big brewers in the UK, had lots of pubs everywhere. They realized in 1968 that people were now getting more, lager was taking off, that this was getting more popular. And they managed to get a license from Heineken, which was the most popular lager in the world at the time. And because of their license of selling Heineken into the UK, they cornered 20% of the market. In 1974, they realized that people were more interested, were now having more money to spend, were going out and buying meals, eating out rather than eating in. And they wanted a good, nice, cheap offering, something very simple, a steak, and I think it was a steak and a strawberry gatto or something was a common meal. They started, relabeled some of the pubs into the beef eater chain to provide exactly what the customers wanted. Later on, basically, they realized coffee was taking off. People liked nice coffee. They bought Costa in 1995. They then bought, a little earlier, they'd also bought into places like Pizza Hut, a number of hotel chains. They then realized that actually pubs and drinking, people weren't drinking that much, breweries were not going to be profitable in the long term. They sold the brewery business off. Later on, Pizza Hut, they sold off. Some of the hotel chains they sold off. They amalgamated some of the hotel chains to create Premier Inn. And recently, 2019, they got a very good offer from Coca-Cola and they got rid of Costa. So they're now concentrating on Premier Inn and now looking at other services. Now, all through this, they've been consistent with what they're good at, which is managing retail property. Pubs, well, retail property. Beefeater chain, retail. Costa, retail. Pizza Hut, retail. The hotels are sort of a retail, managing properties to make money out of them. So they're consistent about what they do and what their skills are, but they've constantly reviewed their operations and said, looking forward, this isn't going to be a good fit. Let's get rid of it, get the best price, and move on. And it's this sort of thing, this systematic abandonment is something that you need to build into your DNA as you go forward. Next slide, please. Just to show that this isn't always necessarily big business, I've been working with a bathroom retailer, and when we did a review of all the products and services, we found that they were selling handcrafted taps. And we said, why are you selling handcrafted taps? Because it doesn't seem to make money. And it's because the person who started the business liked tinkering with machines, and he built a machine that made handcrafted taps. And everyone was too scared to tell him, actually, we don't make money on this and it's a waste of time. For him, this was the most important thing about the business because it was something he'd invented. And in fact, it was dragging the rest of the business down and would have destroyed the business long term. When we looked at all the other product range, it was obvious that where they would make money was if they actually had their own label bath fittings, and where they needed to push their product purchases away from branded bath fittings where you're buying other people's bathrooms and taps and basins and selling them, you're far better at getting, the profit margin is much greater. At the moment, it's when we launch the new products, they're contributing to the strategy because that's the way we want to go. It's not making profit at the moment, but that's okay because we're going to start moving our product into a place where it will make more profits. We'll keep selling branded bath fittings because it does make money, but longer term, we're going to drop it. We also sell shower cubicle sets very cheaply. It doesn't actually help us in the short term. In the long term, it doesn't help us because we want to move into the high quality end. But in the short term, it's making money. So once it's making money, we'll keep selling it until our own label products move into the sweet spot, and then we can drop all the other products. So it's, again, this constant review. What are we selling? What services have we got? What can we drop? What should we be focusing on? And again, this is a tool used called the Boston Matrix, which says, look at all your products and services. You'll have certain dogs, get rid of the dogs. If you've got cash cows, keep milking the cash cow and for the money it will get you. Take a risk on something that will contribute to your strategy. Try and get them into the sweet spot, which is that it's consistently aligned with your strategy and making you money. Last slide, please. Okay, this is my last slide. Just as we look externally to the products and services you sell, you have to keep looking internally into your own organization. As you grow, you need to have tiers of management and administration. Now, the trouble with that is, at the early stage, you have no systems. Everything's a bit of a struggle. It's a little bit fun. It gets too turbulent. You can't cope with a big business if you don't have proper systems in place. You start bringing in processes. If you have too many processes, you suffer from corporate arthritis. Nothing works. You've got to have everything done in triplicate. You need lots of tiers of authorization. You get in a rut, and basically your competition overtakes you. So all the time you need to be thinking internally about moving from being turbulent and entrepreneurial to having the right systems in place. You'll never ever be exactly in the middle, but what you want to do is make sure you don't get too arthritic and you don't want to get too turbulent. Keep reviewing it so you remain in the spectrum of the sweet spot. So you're flexible, you're sustainable, and you're successful. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much for this very, very insightful presentation. If we can please go to the next slide. So we are now ready to take your questions. To submit your question, please just go to the Q&A feature on your toolbar, and then we will share the question with you then. So first of all, Uday, I wanted to ask you something. Why is strategy so important for launching a business?
The strategy is important because if you don't plan to succeed, you're going to fail. It's very important to plan and think through all the possibilities and how you're going to do it and why you're doing it. If you plan, you've got a better chance of succeeding. If you don't plan, you've got a greater chance of failing. And if you haven't thought through the risks, haven't thought through who my customers are, how my product's going to fit, as soon as you hit a problem, you won't be able to cope with it. A strategy gives you a framework. It gives you some thinking processes about how you'll cope with the future. And strategy is all about what I'm going to do about coping with an uncertain future. What are the things I need to have in place to allow me to remain sustainable and become successful long term?
Great, thank you so much for them. Also, you shared with us, the example of Microsoft, and the importance actually of identifying, your roles and, what to be responsible for in your own business. So how should that work as well, in a small organization? Should always the founder be in charge?
Again, you've got to play to your strengths. So I would suggest, for instance, over the years we've had, just to give you an example, we worked with quite a number of engineering firms, and the person who's actually founded the business is fantastic. It's an inventor, comes up with new things, but not very good at selling them. They don't know how to market them. And what we've suggested is that actually they team up with someone who has the opposite skills, they're good at sales and marketing. And so we've teamed them up with the people so they can sell the products. And as the company has grown, we've actually said, you now need someone to come in above you as the chief executive who can actually take care of the management. You carry on doing the invention because that's the engine house of the business. It's the new products that are coming out that's making you successful. But stick to what you're good at, let other people come in. So my thing is that in some businesses, it's great for the founder to be in charge, but usually most founders are not, what the skills you need when you start a business are not the skills you need when the business is much greater. So you need to decide very early on what it is you want to do, where you want to position yourself. Is it a successful business you want, or is it that you just like being the boss? I think if you want a successful business, you need to be able to step aside and let someone else come in and manage the business for you. You could still be the owner of the business, but someone else is doing something better than you.
That's great, thank you so much. And what are the main factors for success of an enterprise?
Okay, so I would say that some of the things that you need to think about, first of all, is having that vision. What is it you want to do and why we want to do it? And start thinking through how you'll create a strategy to help you deliver that vision. The second thing that you need to think about is having a clear idea of the strengths and weaknesses of yourself and your employees early on, and identifying the strengths, resources, capacities, capabilities you'll need to help to support your growth as you go forward, and building that into your strategy. And again, this, as I said, we've talked about this, Francisca, in your previous question. This is about parking your ego and saying, I'm good at this, I need to bring in to someone else to do the other bits of the business. So it's identifying what you need to bring in to go forward. The third thing is to have a very good operational plan. What is it we're going to do? What are all the actions we're going to take over the next 2 to 3 years to hit our strategic objectives? We've got to have a portfolio of deliverables and make sure that people are tasked to deliver those, and those are managed well as you go forward. The next thing is actually making sure that you understood your business model and how you deliver the business model, so that it's most efficient, it's most effective, and it's creating that value proposition and you're delivering that value proposition. And the final thing is having an outward look, making sure you're relevant to the world, you're relevant to the customers around you, that you never relax. You've got to be on your toes the whole time because the competition are going to be snapping at your heels. So you've got to be looking at your customers all the time. Are we doing what they want? Who are our future customers? How can we improve our products or services? And internally, how can I improve our effectiveness and efficiency? How can I keep my employees happy, motivated, focused, and engaged?
Thank you, Ida. So, and how would you start to look for opportunities within markets?
The opportunities are there all the time. Again, there is an old saying that there'll be a problem in front of you, 95% of you will hit that problem and don't realize that's a problem. The genius is the person who looks at the problem and says, why is that problem there? Let's do something about it. I'll just give you an example of someone that we worked with many years ago, just to show how these opportunities can manifest themselves. There was well, she's still there. This lady basically had left a job, had taken maternity leave. And when her child was about 4 years old, she started taking the child to nursery. And she thought it was time that she found a job. She wanted a part-time job. Every time she applied for a job, they said, no, we don't want a part-time person. And of course, she also wanted to be able to take days off if the child was ill and during the school holidays. And nobody was interested in giving her a job. While she was at the school gates, she heard other mothers complaining about the same thing. These were mothers who wanted to go back to work and couldn't get work. And they all kept complaining about it. And she thought, why are they all complaining about it? We should do something about it. So she started her own employment agency, specifically aimed at helping women who were coming out of maternity leave who wanted part-time and flexible work. And within 5 years, she had actually placed 100,000 women into work, and she'd actually created a very successful business for women like us. So she'd spotted a problem. It was there in front of her. It wasn't just her school gate, it would have been true for every school gate, in every school, in probably the whole of the developed world. Nobody else thought about it. She thought about, wow, this is a pain all these women are experiencing. I can do something to fix it.
Thank you so much, Ude. So we have a question from from Khalid. Khalid, thank you so much. I'm going actually to let you speak. 1 second. Khalid, can you hear me? Khalid?
Hello?
Hi. Yes, hi. Yes, please.
Yeah.
What's your question?
Sorry, I don't. I also by accident pressed the button. I do apologise.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. No worries at all. Well, so thank you for joining us today. Okay. Well, this is all we have time for right now. Actually, just one thing we had one last question. So. So Raja is asking, what steps businesses should take to reevaluate their strategy to overcome the current economic downturn quickly?
Sorry, should they review it weekly, did you say?
No, should they review quickly? Quickly,
yes.
Awesome.
Let's be very clear about this. Basically, your strategy is about delivering your vision. So it's a long-term thing. You will set your strategy for a number of years going forward. And what you're then doing is setting strategic objectives, and then you're delivering things against those strategic objectives. Now, your strategic objectives and delivery will have to react to the conditions around you. Ultimately, whatever your strategy is, that we want certain market share or profitability, or we want this product to be a household name, those things are not going to change unless fundamentally you're saying we've got to completely change our business. To cope with these sorts of shocks, we're going to have to come back to our strategic objectives later. We need to do something now. Tactically, that will get us out of the hole or help us survive the conditions now and go back to doing what we're doing. So it's a review of your action plans and delivery more than your strategy. Unless, as I said, basically, if you're a travel business, you might well say, we've got to completely change our strategy. People are never going to travel again. We need to do something else. But if you were for instance, local pub to us, turned around and said nobody's allowed to come into the pub. So it's not that we're going to stop being a pub. How can we make money under these conditions? So what they did was they started putting tables outside the pub, selling beer, food, farmers market, did all sorts of things that allowed them to generate income until people could come back into the pub and you went back to doing your original strategy.
Thank you so much, Huda, and thank you so much for everyone who have joined us today. This is all we have time for right now. If you can go just to the next slide, please. So before going, I just would like to remind you our final webinar of this series on the 28th of July at 11 a.m. Agility in an ever-changing market, always with Red Oker. If you haven't booked yourself yet, just please go to our website and make sure you reserve your place for another very interesting webinar. So this is all we had time for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and bye for now.